The following program will never judge you. We know that you almost certainly do some pretty stupid things. Maybe you tap the lit elevator button so that the elevator knows that now you are ready for it to come, and you mean business. Perhaps you smack your remote control to get that sucker to work. Or even if you pack so many sets of underwear for a 3-day trip that you seem ridiculously worried you will go code brown worse than any human in history. Whatever your deal, it ain't our business. We don't judge. So hit subscribe and smash that like button like they're a defective iPad. The following program is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neiron, aka Good Logic. Tonight, there's no monologue. There's no message directed at a certain demographic of my audience. It's just gonna open with breaking down another clip of Jon Stewart that got thrown into my feed, which seems completely on brand for tonight's show. So here we go. The man, the myth, the legend, Jon Stewart. Let's refresh.
Why can we prohibit children from voting, those under 18 from voting?
Why are you banning that? Is that free speech? Are you infringing on that?
This is that same interview that I was covering a few days ago, obviously, which I think this interview happened like a month ago or so. But let's watch Jon do his thing. Do your thing, Jon. Do it. The comments, you have to see the comments. Oh my god. They basically drop to the knees and start screaming, "We're not worthy. We're not worthy." But do your thing, Johnny.
That performer's free speech.
They can continue to exercise their free speech, just not in front of a child.
Why?
Because the government does have a responsibility to protect.
I'm sorry?
The government does have a responsibility in certain instances.
See, look at that smug. I'm sorry. You said government responsibility. You said it. You said it. I got you now. And this poor schmuck is like some stupid state senator. He doesn't realize where Johnny's going here.
What's the leading cause of death amongst children in this country? And I'm going to give you a hint. It's not drag show readings to children. So what is it?
I'm presuming you're going to say it's firearms.
No, I'm not going to say it like it's an opinion. That's what it is.
What percent is gang related? What percent? When you talk about child death, what age child are we talking about? Does that mean like someone who's 17 and a half? What are we talking about here? It's a wonderful statistic for him to throw out. We're going to go through those numbers a little bit.
It's firearms. More than cancer, more than car accident.
More than cancer, more than car accident. Yeah, that's technically true.
And what you're telling me is you don't mind infringing free speech to protect children from this amorphous thing that you think of.
Amorphous. Okay.
But when it comes to children that have died, you don't give a flying fuck to stop that because that shall not be infringed. That is hypocrisy at its highest order.
Why can we prohibit?
There you go. Okay, so let's break it down. According to studies, they say somewhere between 70 and 75% of all childhood deaths are a result of childhood deaths by firearm are the result of gang-related activity. 70 to 75%. Here's an article which I just pulled up because I was like, I did a Google search. It's really not that hard. Is this accurate? I don't know. But this is pretty recent. As of March 31st, 2023. Less than 2 what's it? A little more than 2 weeks old. Check this out. And he quotes these numbers so often, you would think that, like, it should be etched in his brain. Someone stopped by searching for what percentage of gun deaths are gang related. That was me. Well, it would help if someone would hang a placard on a murder victim saying gang related and not gang related. But joking aside, 1/3 of murders are never solved by arrest. so an exact count is not possible. We do know that a very high percentage of murders are a result of disagreements between partners or rivals in some criminal enterprise. That includes gang killings, since the gangs are rivals from several criminal enterprises. A typical gang will deal in drugs, guns, human traffic. And by the way, no matter what laws you pass to stop gang-related murders, you're not stopping gangsters from getting their hands on guns. So it's not doing anything. So what are the numbers? How many estimates by police departments range from over half to more than 80%, while criminologists who have dug into the situation have found that 70 to 75% of all murders in the United States are a result of thieves falling out, in quotes. The mean is 72.5%, and I generally use 71% to calculate estimates. The FBI reports there are 8,583 gun-related murders. 71% of that would be approximately, by the way, this is gun deaths, period. This is not just children. 85. 8,583 gun-related murders, not kids. 71% of that would be approximately 6,100 gun-related criminal on criminal deaths, which means that Americans. Is that right? Are the numbers that low? Maybe that's this year so far. Let's find this. This was going back to 2011. Total firearms. That's all people in 2011. What percentage are kids? I don't even know. But you're basically saying 6,100 are gun-related are gangsters, which means that there's 2,400, 24 to 2,500, of which a percentage of that is kids. It's such a stupid, made-up number. It's as made-up a number as saying that the LGBTQ community is a significant percentage of Americana. Trust me, that is one squeaky wheel. Man, that wheel squeaks. That wheel squeaks. All we ever hear about anymore. Yeah. But I'll say this. I will tell you this. Drag Time Story Hour is as responsible as guns. Not that activity individually. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying all the messaging trying to make kids get confused and miserable, that's what's causing it, Johnny. That's what's causing it. It's not that people just decide one day, oh, this will be a fun thing to do. Let's go blow up a school with firearms and act like I'm a psychopathic maniac. It's that they're miserable. Because you breed a society which makes our youth miserable, including doing things like making them as confused as possible about their own sexuality at an age when they are hypersensitive to all issues related to that topic. So, yeah, it is a serious issue. If you're serious about stopping children dying from gun deaths, which apparently is not nearly the explosive thing that they would have as more than cancer. How many kids die of cancer every year? I'm wondering how many children die of cancer. I'm sure it's more than 2,500. Sure, I hope not. Very nice. How many American children die of cancer? Let's see. Let's say there's roughly 1,000. They're expecting in 2023 there'll be 1,040 children. This is according to cancer.org. Cancer.org estimates that a little over 1,000 children under the age of 14, not 18, 14 will die from cancer this year. So no, John, you're full of hot garbage. It's just not true. Just making stuff up. Literally making stuff up. And the left just literally spasms in excitement. That's the best way to phrase that. Spasms in excitement. I like that way. Spasms in excitement. What is going on here with Lesko? What is happening with him? Give me a C. Give me a U. What's Jon Stewart? Give me a C. C. Give me a U. U. What's Jon Stewart? Oh, okay. Did I miss one or two? I did. Give me an N. Give me a T. What's Jon Stewart? I did miss a couple. All right. Well, now we're all caught up. I like it in that order too. All right. I have one more funny clip that I wanted to share with you before we get into the as an appetizer. This is an appetizer before we get into the entree. So I saw this in my feed and I was like, oh my God, this is funny. This is funny. So let me share this. Just popped once in a while. Twitter can be really funny. That is Jon Stallone and his daughter, what's her name? Sistine Stallone, listening to a voicemail that she received together. You gotta hear this. This is so good. You can see.
Hey, 3 o'clock. It's Dimitri calling again, the guy from the street. I left you a message several days ago. I don't like leaving second messages, but I like you. You're a very elegant woman. You're very attractive, but
I don't like leaving second messages, but I like you.
I don't play that game. So here's how it's going to work. If I do not receive a phone call back from you by 3 o'clock Thursday afternoon, I'm no longer interested. I'm very intelligent. I'm great in bed. I make great money. Believe it or not, I'm a complete catch. Matter of fact, I'm one of the few men in the city that has nothing wrong with him. Now,
other than the bodies that chained up in his basement. One of the few men in the city who have nothing wrong with him. Here's the way it's going to work. Listen to the tone. I got to start from the beginning.
It's Dimitri calling again, the guy from the street.
Again.
I left you a message several days ago. I don't like leaving second messages, but I like you. You're a very elegant woman. You're very attractive, but I don't play that game. So here's how it's going to work. If I do not receive a phone call back from you by 3 o'clock.
Yo, Dimitri, this is Sylvester. I'm returning Sistine's call for her.
Thursday afternoon, I'm no longer interested. I'm very intelligent. I'm great in bed. I make great money. Believe it or not, I'm a complete catch. Matter of fact, I'm one of the few men in the city that has nothing wrong with him. Now, I understand.
He sounds like he's someone who has spent considerable time in the manosphere, trying to but taking it to just a creepy kind of level. You know what I'm saying? Where it's what the heck is happening here?
Understand if you've got other issues. I don't know, maybe you were abused in childhood. Maybe you're just a person who's extremely frightened or has an anxiety disorder. Maybe you're on some medication for that. I don't know. There could be another issue. If you're psychologically normal and you haven't called me because there's been some horrible thing that's happened in your life which prevented you, that's fine. It's Dimitri calling.
Look at Sly looks he looks like he wants to rip this guy's throat out.
And if you've got other issues, I don't know, maybe you were abused in childhood. Maybe you're just a person who's extremely frightened or has an anxiety disorder. Maybe you're on some medication for that. I don't know. There could be another issue. If you're psychologically normal and you haven't called me because there's been some horrible thing that's happened in your life which prevented you, that's fine.
He looks like Dimitri. He looks like he's about to get in the car and he's about to pull up. He's about to pull up. I wonder if he knows that it's Sistine Stallone. Maybe she just wrote her first name, didn't give her last name. Oh my god. Oh my god. So good. I thought that was hilarious. That was really funny. All right. Time for the entree? Shall we? Shall we? We shall. Let me check up on all right, we get over here. Let me check up my third. Tell me I made it. I did make a chat. All right, I made a chat. I'm good. All right, I covered all my bases. I did everything right tonight. Okay, where should we begin? Let's watch. Let's start with the nice, easy, laid back one. I want to watch. We're going to be watching the first one. These are all debates which have happened within the last like 3 or 4 months. So it's a series of heated debates that I've never watched yet, but I'm gonna share them here with you, and together we will roll. The first one is gonna be Bill Maher defending capitalism.
I feel like a lot of the younger people feel like it's not working for them. And I know Bernie Sanders is coming up on our show in a couple of weeks. And Bernie's got a new book out about how you can't be mad at hating capitalism. But I don't know what replaces it or what are the fixes. Certainly, capitalism has never been perfect. I just want to know if there's something better. I mean, I know a lot of the younger people think it's socialism, but that may be because they don't remember when socialism was tried. And also the fact that we already have in our economy quite a bit of socialism. We are a hybrid economy. Would we at least agree with that?
Yes.
A little hybrid. I think that when we say capitalism in America, a lot of times what we're just referring to is...
That's Ari Melber from MSNBC's Ari Melber. Weasel little man.
This current deregulated super pro bank or pro 1% set of rules. So you can come up with the examples like a lot of regular people pay a lot more taxes than billionaires. That's obviously totally nuts. Or the way that home ownership and college are 4 or 5 times as expensive in adjusted dollars today than they were a generation ago. So that.
It was a really good conversation, and I encourage people to watch all of it.
I don't want to hear that. I wanted to watch all of it. No. That wasn't what That's the problem. That's the problem with doing it this way. God. I was like, I'm not going to watch it beforehand. I want to watch it with you. It's like we get to experience it together. And I even like jumped past the beginning part of that. Now I gotta find it. I'm gonna find it. Hopefully it's not gonna be like much longer than that. So I was looking at 10 minutes on that. Hey, it's Eric Hunley. Rising isn't what it used to be. They duped me. They duped me. That's what happened here. I thought I had like a great link. I'm like, okay, let's get on into this. And the next thing I know, I'm listening to these two knuckleheads talking. Define younger people working for them. Like at 30, one makes 50K, 75K, 100K. What does working for them mean? I don't know. I was barely getting into it. I'm trying to find it on YouTube now. I'm trying to find it. Well, this is disappointing. I apologize for that. How long is this thing? Is this...
Okay, here we are on CNN. Wow, I'm still so is receiving plaques for funding cataracts. What that question is, but
No, that's not it. That's not it. All right. All right, next one. Wow. I feel like there's like a big L attached to my forehead right now. I'm not gonna kid you. I'm owning it. All right, let's get into the trans stuff. Here's the first one up for you. Don't worry, I got a whole bunch of debates. So this is Julia Hartlett Brewer. Again, heated debate between trans activists and women over what was this? Over trans rights versus women's rights. This is fun. That has to be fun, right? That has to be good.
Let's talk about, well, a country that would like to be an independent republic, and that is Scotland. And the SNP-led Scottish government confirmed yesterday they will launch a legal challenge against the bloc put on their plans for gender self-ID reforms. Rishi Sunak and his Scottish secretary decided to block that change in the law on the basis.
There's got to be English translation here, right? Oh, there's the English translation. All right. I don't know what's happening. That was not English.
ID reforms. Rishi Sunak and his Scottish secretary decided to block that change in the law on the basis that actually it was outside of the remit of the Scottish government's powers, but also that it would basically come up against UK-wide equality laws in terms of the impact on women's and girls' rights and safety. Let's talk about this with Frida Wallace. He's a trans woman and works for the LGBT Foundation in Manchester and is host of the Gender Nebulous podcast. Good morning to you, Frida.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Okay, here we go.
Now, these gender self-ID reforms, very controversial in Scotland, seen as being part of the reason why Nicola Sturgeon ended up leaving as First Minister, as one of the straws that broke the camel's back. Why do you think Humza Yousaf is confirming that he's going to launch a legal action to try and push this through?
I think it's controversial in Scotland because this was almost overwhelmingly voted for by a cross-party majority. And what you're seeing here realistically is a meddling of Westminster lobby groups in Scottish politics. This bit of legislation has never been so, there's never been a piece of legislation so heavily fought over. And you have to question why that is. You know, there's so many different factors to this. I don't think this is why Sturgeon left. I think there might be something else going on there.
You say it's not controversial in Scotland. It is. The vast majority of polling has shown very clearly, you know, well over 2/3 of Scottish people don't support this. Now, politicians might well support it in Parliament. Labour voted for this, the Greens, SNP, some other parties, but Lib Dems, lots of support in Parliament, but it hasn't got the support of the Scottish people, including an awful lot of SNP members.
Well, there might be some SNP members, like what's she called, Cherry? I forgot, Joanna Cherry. But they're very much linked to the lobby groups I just mentioned.
What lobby groups?
Well, we're talking about For Women Scotland. We're talking about the LGBT Alliance.
I'm confused. This experiment is not off to a rousing start. Not going to kid you. All right. This might sound a little American centric, a little white nationalistic. European politics. This is me. They're talking about Scottish politics. And I get like, I'm sitting here trying to, I know they were speaking English. I was making a joke. I'm simply saying, I'm going to give this another minute or so, but I'm not enjoying this. This had way more potential than hearing about different lobby groups from Scotland.
representing women. How awful.
Well, no, they represent Westminster, Julia. 7 independent Scottish women's groups support self-ID, and they wrote to the Scottish Parliament to express that. We cannot allow...
No, but can
Julia,
you address... No, Frida, address the question I actually asked you. You said it's not controversial in Scotland because people support it, because you pointed to politicians voting for it. I pointed out the Scottish people don't. The polling is very consistent. The Scottish people don't support this.
Well, it depends who's doing the polling, doesn't it, Julia?
It does.
It does. It really does. And I'll tell you something.
There are no polls saying that the Scottish people support this.
Well, I'm just going to say, we can't allow the lives of trans people to be used as a pawn in a Westminster battle.
It's always used as a pawn. Always used as a pawn. Oh, they're such pawns. Oh, the pawns.
Oh, we are, Julia. And you platform people on this program like Kelly J. Keane are very much linked to far-right nationalist groups.
It's the far-right nationalist groups. Why'd you come on here then? Why'd you come on here, Frida? Why did you come on here when you're sitting here? You had that information before you walked on here. No one just fed you that information right now. And all of a sudden you're sitting here saying, like, I can't have a conversation with you because you've platformed these far-right white nationalist groups.
Frida, I know you get away with this on other shows, but you're not talking that nonsense on my show. That is actually a libel. She's not. I know Kelly J. Keane. She is absolutely. I platform her because she is a woman who's campaigning for women's safety.
Julia, stop lying. Please stop lying.
Frida, you're being rude to me and you're libeling a former guest on my show.
No, I'm not.
I know you get away with this sort of bullying on other shows, but it doesn't fly with me.
When you have people like Lee Anderson suddenly supporting women's rights, you know there's something fishy going on in Westminster. Let's be realistic about this.
Again, another absurd statement. The key thing here is gender self-ID. Any man...
This woman, Hartley, she's not backing down. She ain't backing down. She's like, I'm not taking no guff here. All right. Don't just let them talk grab the soapbox on the basis of that they're victims and everyone around them anyone who disagrees with them is a racist. I like this.
All women being able to say that they are living they are now a different gender and having that legally recognized. That doesn't expose men to risks, but it does expose women to risks. We know with men who are rapists. We've seen Isla Bryson and other cases who can then, after the point at which they're charged or convicted, say, "Oh, actually, I'm a woman," and get put into a women's prison. That was something that the Scottish gender self-ID law would allow.
This is a problem, by the way, that they had. This is actually a problem that we're having in American prisons now. Surprise, surprise. That's what James O'Keefe was asking Dylan Mulvaney about in the hotel in the clip that I thought was too boring to share with you. So I didn't.
It's been happening in England as well. Some of the Humza Yousaf and indeed Nicola Sturgeon endorsed happening until there was a public outcry and they had to backtrack. At the end of the day, as much as I don't want trans people to have to go through any more difficulties in their lives than they already are going through, because I think it's a very difficult thing to be in that situation. When rights for trans people trample on the rights and safety of women and girls, we have a right to speak out, don't we?
Well, all you have to do there is do a risk assessment, Julian. 18 other countries that have self-ID laws with
There you go. There you go.
No issues. Most recently, Spain and Finland, they have these laws of self-ID. There's no issues.
There's no issue with men being rapists being put into prisons with women.
Well, that's not what we're discussing. We don't go to extremes. We're not going to those extremes.
Why not? Why not? That's a natural outgrowth. You see, this is what the left always wants to do. It's like they have a policy, and whatever bad might happen, it's like let's not. You're worrying about a slippery slope. You're worrying about worst case scenario. And then when society ends up crumbling in that direction, precisely as foretold, it's like now we have to come up with a new solution to this new problem.
Julia,
those extremes, they were 3 in 1 week.
Okay, can I just speak to that a little bit? Because when you go to extremes, you don't win the argument. When you start talking about immigrants as having diseases, we know where that's going.
What happened there?
What does that even mean? Where's that coming from? Who is doing that? Who is doing that? It's like all of a sudden, which, by the way, that was a trope which had been used in an anti-Semitic way against Jews across countries for centuries. Was that they were dirty and diseased or whatever, and that's the thing is, like, you know, when Jews throughout history, whenever they've been chased from one country to another, it's that they're either too affluent, too wealthy, too important, or too dirty and diseased or whatever. But that's what Frida's calling upon there. She, you know, I'm assuming it's a dude. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not looking to misgender anyone. I'm simply going just based on the voice, which to me is very, very masculine. I think the voice is probably deep in their mind. But yeah, I think that maybe I'm going out on a limb there. I might be going on I don't know if I'm going out on a limb. I might be going out on a limb with that call, but I digress. No, but now it's like trying to invoke anti-Semitism out of nowhere. Nothing to do with the entire conversation. Like, what the hell is that? That's hilarious.
And where did that get thrown in? Talk about
Julia,
the subject in hand, Frida.
Why don't you speak to Brendan O'Neill again and have a word with him, and he'll tell you.
Talk about the subject. I love the fact you're just deflecting to. I mean, why don't you just call everyone a Nazi in the next few minutes? We'll have done. I'll have the full. We'll have the full packet of insults. I asked you a question, and you're deliberately no. Oh,
is that an admission? Listen,
do you know what? I'm sure
lunatic.
These things. Interviews like this do really well online because people are battling. But yes, I think it's really boring. I'd much rather have a sensible conversation.
Well, yeah, it could be like a little. It's fun online though.
About where trans rights clash with women's rights.
You've had no sensible discussions on trans issues. And all I can tell you is young trans people that I know feel like
if you don't agree with me, it's not sensible.
Talks about a lot, and we're not being represented properly. And if I can't have a conversation with you factually, then
no, apparently you can't.
Well, I have done, and I've told you some facts. Now, follow Trans Safety Network, follow my Twitter, and you will understand.
That's why this dude showed up here. Follow me here. Here are my links. Follow me here.
I think I've got better things to do than follow you on Twitter, Frida. Again, I would have wasted so much time. We could have had a useful conversation. But if you don't want to have a useful conversation, I guess we won't. But time is over for us, unfortunately. I'm sure we'll invite you on again, though. We'll see if we can get some more time and actually have a sensible conversation, if that's possible.
So Yusuf is...
Well, there you go. I don't want to hear the rest of this because I don't care. I don't care about your analysis. I thought that was fire. That was fire right there. All right. While we're on topic here, let me get this real quick. So I take it, Joe, you're beginning to believe me about Title IX. You should have had more conversation with me about it and not delete the video. I didn't delete any videos, but I take a lot of my videos and I put them to members only. And the more controversial they are, the faster that happens. So that's just the way I roll. That's the way I roll. That's the way I have to roll, actually. And that's the way I will indefinitely continue to roll. Follow me to understand. Do you have links? Do you have links, Joseph? Where should I follow you? Where should I follow you? That was really funny. All right. Here we go. Now the next one is gonna be about protecting same-sex spaces. I don't know. I think this is gonna be another transgender one. I got a whole bunch of these. We can go all night. Not that we will, but we could. That was a little better. That was definitely a little better. All right. This was 12 days ago. Are you Mr. or Mrs.? Heated debate on transgender rights to safe spaces. Ooh.
To be honest, Sean, that question's come slightly out of left field for me.
Head to toe, let's just say some answer the question with ease, others really don't.
To be honest, Sean, that question's come slightly out of left field for me. People define themselves. People define their own genders.
But trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman.
No, there is there is circumstances in which a trans woman will be housed in the male prison estate.
I want to clarify my position on this because I actually tweeted something about this earlier today. Okay, which is I do think it's important that we basically make a stand and stand up and say a transsexual, a man who is a transsexual does not become a woman, becomes a trans woman. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. And it's ridiculous to start referring to that as a woman. Now, and I follow up by saying, people say, well, what's with the story of Blair White? Where do you come there? What I'm saying is, okay, so if a person actually engages in surgery, well, not just someone who's LARPing the way Dylan Mulvaney is, but they actually engage in surgery to change their entire body. At the end of the day, that makes them a trans woman. That's what makes them a trans woman, not a woman. No one's able to change genders. You can't become a man. You cannot become a woman. You were born what you were born. You cannot change that. At the same time, if someone is going to engage to that degree where they're willing to, they actually engage in surgery to change who they are. And at that point, they want to be referred to as she. I don't really have that much of a problem with it. I mean, I can go along with that because it's not at this point, it's no longer, you can't really properly classify this individual as male or female. It's a trans woman. So now we have to figure out, okay, so what are we going to, what pronoun is going to attach to it, to this individual? So I don't like saying it because I think that there's still a person at the end of the day. And I think that's, if someone is a mature adult, they decide they want to make these changes in their lives. Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying she, because I think we refer to a ship as she. We refer to the moon as she. We refer to farm animals or puppies that have a litter as she. The problem with woman specifically is that woman implies human female. And that is something which has a very special and should maintain a very special recognition. That is the only thing that is identified as a woman. And then no one can just all of a sudden, presto snappo, become a woman. So I don't think there's anything conflicting in that position. And that's why I say, okay, you know what? If they go to that degree, and now they're not man, not a woman, pronoun-wise, you want to figure out what to call them, want to identify as she, okay, that's fine. If someone puts on a skirt, a man puts on a skirt and lipstick, and doesn't actually go to that degree of actually engaging in it, I don't even think they earn the pronoun. That's my take on it. Now, as far as the labeling on the pronoun, stuff like that, that's my own personal perspective on it. Where you may fall in that, you might fall somewhere different, you might fall somewhere the same. I'm not saying that what I'm saying on this is gospel. I'm not saying that this is Torah. I'm not saying this is the ultimate truth. But what I will say is the ultimate truth is no human can change their gender. Can't. You might be able to take away your maleness. You're not becoming a woman. You're becoming a trans woman. There you go. Anyway, what do we got here? I got a few more comments. I am God. I define me. I am my own God. You shall follow me at Twitter or something. The conflict between human rights and civil rights is confusing the law to cease to exist. Title IX needs to be discussed further. Let me call in. I'm not doing call-ins tonight, brother. So it's not happening tonight. I do call-ins more than anyone else, but
Nick, I'm not. I don't think we can conduct this debate with,
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No. It's just no. I just.
Yeah, of course I know a woman, an adult human female.
Well, this week, Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, you just saw him at the end there when he was speaking to Piers Morgan a few weeks ago. He has pledged to change the Equality Act here in the UK to introduce legal protections for biological women in same-sex spaces. With the move perhaps banning trans women from accessing single-sex spaces, is it fair? That's our question coming up now. Joining me is transgender teacher and journalist Debbie Hayton and Frida Wallace from the Manchester LGBT Foundation. Great to have you both with us on this important issue. You know what? Seeing that New Zealand leader there saying this question is coming out of left field, that strikes me because it's really not left field at the moment. This is absolutely mainstream debate. And let's just start with the very obvious change that's being proposed by the Conservative government here in the UK at the moment. Debbie, I'll come to you first. Is it a sensible move?
I do think it's a sensible move. Trans people have been let down badly in the same way that women have been let down badly.
Whoa, what happened with the eyes there?
Badly worded laws that have increasingly been based on feelings. And that's no basis of anybody's rights. Trying to base those laws on feelings.
And no, looks nothing like Runkle.
Has led to uncertainty, it's led to confusion and a lack of confidence in the law.
Don't even start with that. I don't even want to hear anything like that. I see the comments. Nothing at all.
We need to get back to reality.
Let's pose that then to Frida about the feelings point, because what's at the core of this is changing the legal definition, legal protections for people depending on.
How are we having a heated debate between two trans persons on this? I'm baffled.
Biological sex is what's proposed rather than legal sex. So, what do you?
One second, my producer's calling me. And we're back. I'm better than ever.
You make of Debbie's point there. Do you think this is the sensible move?
No, it's not about feelings. It's about social reality and the way people conduct themselves in social lives. You know, like nobody cares how I identify. They just accept me as I am. You know, in my social life and my real life, the female friends I know, the cis female friends I know, don't have a problem. This is just it's political maneuvering, really, and it's completely unworkable. I've had like distressed emails today from trans women, young trans people actually, they're worried that they're not going to be able to live their lives. They're not going to be able to go into the toilets that they always would have. But it's just a ridiculous scenario. It's not going to happen. I would like to reassure trans people out there that this is completely unworkable because
Frida's on it. Frida is on it. Frida, if they think this is going to happen, they're wrong. Frida's on it.
To police this, you would have to check people. You know, are you going to check whether somebody's male or female in a public space? It's just not workable. It's not realistic.
I see your point there about the realisticness of it, the common sense side of it, how it's actually going to be enforced. But do you accept, Frida, that the reason this is being brought up and the reason the government is pushing hard for it is because there have been a couple of cases, and I appreciate they're small, of bad actors that are kind of messing it up for the rest.
I can't get over this one on the left there. Just the facial. You have to see this in large because I'm watching this larger than you guys are. So let me adjust this so you can appreciate just the specter of this. This is an astonishing. Let's try it this way. No, I don't like that. This way. That's not good. This way. That's pretty good. That's good enough, I think. Should we just go back to regular like this? Ooh, yeah. For this one, I think we need to appreciate the full glory here.
And it's made women feel unsafe.
We don't base laws based on bad actors that mess it up for the rest. There were 7 women convicted just today of sex crimes. You know, it's got nothing to do with whether you're trans or not, whether you're a perpetrator of heinous crime.
Maybe they were trans. Maybe they were trans women who were being labeled as women. That's the whole issue here.
They always try and make out that, you know, trans women are some kind of threat. you'll hear people like Helen Joyce completely misinterpreting this all the time. It's just not how reality works, I'm afraid. And it's like, I was hoping that Kelly J. Keane was going to be on this show tonight, because she is somebody that is like a totally ridiculous person that's followed around the world by the far right. And
I can't. The far right. Everyone's on the far. Anyone who disagrees on the far right.
it's like this is the level of ridiculousness this debate has got to now, and it's it's just.
She was invited. She wasn't able to be here, so she isn't able
because
to defend
she chickened
herself
out because she knew I was going to be here.
A ridiculous person.
Well, she is. She's somebody that travelled 11,000 miles to get covered in soup, and then.
This is like what would have happened if like what was his name? Grandpa Munster went trans. This is the trans version of Grandpa Munster. Frida is. That's what I'm saying.
Came back and claimed it was some kind of victory.
On this point, because, and I will come back to
Maybe
very
it's Danny
shortly, Debbie, but I just want to come back
as
to
the
Frida on
Penguin.
this, because the way this conversation is going, you brought up some real concrete examples there of, emails you've received today, real life examples of trans women who are being impacted by this decision, but then starting to slam people by calling them ridiculous.
If Grandpa Munster goes trans, I guess he would become Grandma Monster.
Isn't this the kind of route that we go down, where this debate becomes so toxic, so aggressive, and it actually undoes the cause?
I don't think so. I think when you're actually followed by if you're followed by an organization called Arts of Hope, who Tommy Robinson founded, if you're followed by those kind of people, you deserve to have everything thrown at you, including soup. Sorry, that's just how it is.
I do appreciate there is toxicity on both sides of the debate. Debbie, coming back to you.
It would be really helpful if they actually had two sides of the debate in this debate. That's part of like what a debate is. Like, I don't know how you call this heated debate when we have two people. I couldn't really make out what Runklet here was saying before. Maybe I don't know. Maybe this is an angry scowl, but let's see what we got.
That we have, it feels like, reached a tipping point in this issue. Whereas a few years ago, we've come light years from, people being accused of being TERFs. Obviously, that is a real and concrete concern, but also people wanting to speak up about their own delicate issues surrounding rights and women's rights as well. So talk to me about what you're seeing, where we are along that tipping point when it comes to trans rights, but also defending the rights of women.
Well, we were in a position where trans rights were, as I said, dependent on feelings. We made an assertion and everybody just believed us. Now the boot seems to be on the other foot. Women are asserting their feelings, and rightly so. But feelings are not a basis of law. We need to come back to reality. We need to respect women and women's spaces.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna hear this person out.
If we claim to identify with women, then we should respect their spaces. We shouldn't go and take their spaces from them. And
so this is the moderate trans position versus the extremist okay.
Talking about young trans people, I just regret that the false promises that have been made. Young people.
I just regret that any young person is a trans person. How young are you talking about?
People have been told that they can change sex so they can be the opposite sex. I can tell you as a science teacher, it's just not true. And the problem.
Oh wow! Look at this. Look at this!
Is that young people have been made promises that nobody can keep, and it's not a basis to go forwards. We need to come back to reality. We need to come back to science, and we need to base laws on what we can measure and what we can see, which is biological sex.
Go, go! Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go. All right. From the mouths of babes.
And just staying with you for a second, Debbie, because there's some. I want to ask if you think you see any issues with this proposed government change to the Equality Act, because there are some interesting points. One being brought up by the equality watchdog to the government, saying this change to the Act could actually make it easier.
I don't know if I've ever used that phrase before, but felt like a fit. Felt like a fit in the moment.
Trans men to bring pay discrimination cases because they'll be judged on their biological sex, which was woman. It's definitely tricky ground to tread. Do you see any kind of complications coming along if it is enforced?
Well, we need a proper debate. We need to listen to each other, and we need to talk. But by moving laws back to what is objective and what is concrete and what is real is a basis to be moving forwards. And you're quite right to point out about trans men. There's also the issue about, as it stands, trans men find it very difficult to exert their rights under a pregnancy and maternity because the way the law is written. And it's because of issues like this that we need to come back and we need to just analyse what the law is actually there for and how we can best apply it.
I'm glad you brought up the issue of trans men there as well, or in their cause, because this law would apply to both trans men and trans women when it comes to this idea of biological sex points and the legal protections of those. Frida, back to you, if I can, because Debbie was making the point there that as a trans woman, she would like to be on the side of women and understand where they're coming in at this debate. So talk to me from the point of view of your organisation and the activism you do, where women fit into that.
Well, we include all women from all walks of life. And there are so many diverse types of women. It's like, I just don't understand what Debbie is waffling on about. She represents an organisation called the LGB Alliance that actually don't like Debbie at all. They pretend to. An investigation by Ben Hunt of Vice magazine revealed them.
Look at this whole, everything is an ad hominem. Everything is an ad hominem. Oh my gosh.
EHRC, the actual laws that you're talking about now, it's total corruption that's going on, and it plays into the hands of people like Lee Anderson, who's already saying that he'll use this issue for the next election.
I don't know who.
Some people are being used as a political football. And Debbie, I mean, does Debbie identify as a woman? Is she?
I'm assuming Lee Anderson is a direct descendant from Heinrich Himmler. That's what I'm assuming about Lee Anderson. Just what I've heard from Frida about this individual. It must be.
To Debbie, I don't know how she conducts herself in social life, but it's not realistic, is it, in any sense, for Debbie to identify as a woman and then say she shouldn't be allowed in female spaces?
Frida, I mean, I'm taking issue with the way some of these personal attacks are being directed at Debbie, but I'm going to allow Debbie to respond.
Can I just say that I don't represent the LGBT Alliance at all? That's just not true. And I go about my life as Debbie. This is not an issue. I don't identify as a woman. Women are female.
So are you Mr. Debbie?
I'm Dr. Debbie.
So you're Mr. Debbie. You're not Mrs. Debbie Hayton.
No, I'm Dr. Debbie Hayton.
But doctor isn't a sex delineation, is it?
No,
so who are you?
What?
No, Debbie. Are you Mr. Debbie Hayton?
All right, now it's getting good. Here we go. Frida's feeling wadded right now.
Why is this an issue? Why is this an issue?
Because it's important. Because this is the delineation we have in society. If you're going to start calling yourself Mr. Debbie, you're going to have a lot of problems there accessing female spaces or even male spaces.
Right.
I don't access female spaces, Frida. It'd be wrong for us to do that. Those are for women.
Debbie, you're a ridiculous you don't represent anything, Debbie. Be realistic.
I want to end this conversation here because I don't actually think it's very nice.
What the hell do you represent? What look at I can't stand when people like lace into their argument their own self-importance. It's like, oh, you're a nobody. You're not representing anyone. I'm representing something really, really significant here. For all we know, Frida's stupid organization has 6 people in it. It's like, and even if it has 6 million people, who cares? What an insecure loser.
the personal attacks that we've had on Debbie this evening. I want to thank you, Debbie, for sharing your experience with us. I'm not taking either side in the debate, but Frida, when we take into context what is being done to try and fight for trans rights at the moment and for the rights of women, it's the toxicity of this type of debate that seems to be holding everything back. But I want to thank you both for your insights this evening. We're going to wrap things up there, Frida and Debbie. Thanks so much.
Bye. That was great. That was great. I need more Frida. I need more of that lunatic Frida. Oh my God. Me too. Me too. There you go. There you go. All right. I'm going to save David Packman for later because he gives me a headache. We're going to close out our trans debates with this one here, which is Trevor Noah standing up for female athletes on the Daily Show. This was actually a while ago. This was 9 months ago, but it's my oldest interview that I had. But I've seen a few clips from this, and I was like, all right, this looks like something. This looks like something that'll fit with tonight's genre. And the trans person goes by the name Veronica Ivy. Trans women in women's sports.
Thank you.
I love how the glasses have to be rainbow. They have to be rainbow glasses.
So I'm going to say from the top, because I've noticed this happens in every conversation. Every time you bring up trans rights, or if you have a discussion and you say trans, people tense up. I understand why. We live in a world where now there are people who are so transphobic that it makes it almost impossible for people who aren't to ask any questions, to have any conversation.
No. It's that everyone is labeled transphobic. That's what it is. Everyone is labeled transphobic. Everyone who doesn't like sit there saying, rah, rah, trans, you're labeled transphobic. He's trying to dissociate himself from the people, from those who are that's what he's saying up. He's like, it's hard for me to have a conversation because please don't label me transphobic. Please don't label me transphobic. Just because I'm going to ask you some questions here that you might not like.
To have any discourse that doesn't lump them in with transphobia. And so I'm really glad that you're joining us on the show to talk about this, because it feels like one of the biggest issues in America, and yet no one can seem to talk about it. So let's start with your journey. You've competed at some of the highest levels in sports. And as your hoodie says, sport is a human right. That is what you believe in. Talk me through
the lemmings. Hey, it's a human right. Doesn't mean anything. But
talk me through just a little bit of why you believe fighting for transgender athletes to compete in the categories they'd like to in sport is so important.
So it's a fundamental tenet of the Olympic movement that
as a debate method, I'm going to give props to Trevor Noah. I'm going to give props to Trevor Noah because I have a feeling he's going to come out against trans women competing with women. And I'm going to give props to him that it's a healthy way, especially when you're sometimes when the dynamic of a debate is sometimes there's a moderator and then there's, two contestants, two who's basically the referee in the ring. And then you have sometimes the person themselves who's the host is the moderator and the opposition, which is a little bit of a trickier way to handle it. If you ever find yourself in this situation where you're engaging someone in debate, it's good to let them make their strongest point. Here's your open floor. Make your argument. What is the strongest basis for the strongest, break down the 3 or 4 strongest arguments in favor of the position that you're going to come out with. It's good for a few reasons. Tactically, it's A, it makes them feel heard, but B, it opens them up that you can see, okay, what are they basically pinning what are they rooting their argument to? And then once that's rooted, you can start hacking away at the roots. But this way, you're sort of pinning them into a position. It's almost like when you take a deposition before putting someone on the stand, it's like you're rooting them into what their story is. They can't change it later. So too, by doing this at the beginning, this serves as the deposition for putting the person on the stand in the second half of the interview. It's a very shrewd move that he's doing. It's very shrewd in that it comes across as polite, but it's also it's a skilled way of attacking an opponent if you really want to rip them apart. So I highly recommend that you that if you ever find yourself in a similar circumstance, you might just be debating someone on the street, might not be on public TV, but whatever it is that if you find that you're about to you feel like you're walking into an argument, I strongly suggest that the first thing you do in order to enable your position to come out as strong as possible is give the other side a chance to root their argument to certain rationales. So they're saying, this is what I believe in. There might be 12 other rationales, but they're telling you the ones that are most important to them. And that gives you an opportunity to start hacking away at them. While at the same time coming across as, being completely reasonable. I'm letting you speak and give us your thoughts.
That sport is a human right. So in their Olympic charter, in their fourth fundamental principle of Olympism, they say participation in sport is a human right. And they mean that at the competitive level. Mm-hmm. So this issue, people like to say that it's a complicated issue, and I don't actually think it is. I think it's very simple. It all boils down to, do you actually think that trans women and intersex women are real women and are really female?
Nope.
Or not?
Nope.
And if you do, it's very simple. Just stop policing who counts as a real woman.
Trans vice more excited with kiddie pool shell. No, it's not. It's definitely not what Bill Cosby himself makes the Jell-O pudding pop. It's Jell-O pudding pop.
Woman, because this has had history of racism built into it over the years.
You see?
It's not an accident that the intersex athletes who get singled out are women of color from the global south, because who gets singled out for scrutiny is based on white women's conceptions of femininity. And that's being weaponized against trans people too. So it's a fear of protecting.
So Veronica Ivy here is attempting to basically cover position in saying, hey, I'm with you. This is like I'm part of the oppressed Black community by dint of being trans. That's clever.
Fragile, weak, cis white woman.
Because we haven't seen that happen over and over and over again. So it's very clever.
The rest of us.
So
yeah.
There are many elements to what you said, which I appreciate. So let's try to break them down. One thing that confuses me personally is it seems like we have discussions about who should participate in which category and how. On the face of it, it seems simple, as you say. If somebody identifies as a woman, if they're transgender, they can compete against women who are born biologically, and then if not, then not. But then there are many who would argue who are not transphobes. There are many who born biologically women who will say, but you have an unnatural advantage over me, and that makes the sport unfair. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, there's lots of ways you can respond to that. So the first is the very language of you were born and I'm not biological somehow. Like I don't think I'm a cyborg.
No,
so
you're not a cyborg. You're a man. It's very simple. It's that simple. You're not a cyborg. Stop trying to make yourself. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're a transsexual, in which case you're a trans woman. You're not a woman. You're a trans woman.
Oh, like this idea that you're not a biological woman. Well,
right.
I am a woman. That's a fact. I am female.
No, it's not a fact. That's an opinion. It's the opposite of a fact. It's a fiction. It's just not true.
So all my identity records, my racing license, my medical records all say female.
No one cares.
Right? And I'm pretty sure I'm made of biological stuff. So I'm a biological female as well.
No, that doesn't hold up. That doesn't. A woman is not a woman because it is on her birth certificate, it says F instead of M. That's not what makes her a woman. You know what it is? Being born with a uterus. It's that simple. Even though it's not functioning when she comes out, that's what makes her a woman when she grows up.
So this question of, do trans women have an advantage over cis women? We don't know. In fact,
we don't know. We don't know the fact that biological males have something like, I don't know, 40% more muscle mass like their entire lives. We don't know if that's an advantage in sports.
There's basically no published research on this question. However, there's good reason to think that there isn't, but I think it's irrelevant because we allow all kinds of competitive advantages within women's sport. So one example I love to talk about is the 2016 Rio Olympic women's high jump final. First place was over 6'3", 10th place was 5'5". So a 10.5-inch height difference between first and 10th at the Olympics in high jump.
Right.
And we call that fair.
Okay.
So the range of body types within the female category is way, way bigger than anything that could be attributed to trans women. So if there's an advantage, and
that's not relevant at all. This is the silliest thing on earth. That's like saying, well, midgets can't get in, midget women can't get in. That's the stupidest thing in the world. That's I mean, why don't you talk about midget women? Let's vote. Like, you know, it's like, look, you know, midget women can't get in, and you know, so who cares? Who cares? The point is, you're statistically born with natural more body mass because of this. It's so ridiculous.
And I'm not saying that there is for trans women in women's sport. It's not an unfair advantage. But also, we've been trying to compete at the highest level for decades. We've been allowed to compete for decades. And no one has won an elite world championship. No one has won an Olympic gold medal.
And what happens when that does happen? And then it happens over and over and over and over and over again. What happens at that point? Oops. What happens then? How many world records have been set? Like, I think in swimming. Well, what do you say to Leah Thomas? Let's let Trevor do his thing, though.
This Tokyo Olympics was the first time trans women even qualified for the Olympics. So this idea that trans women are suddenly going to take over women's sport is an irrational fear of trans women, which is the dictionary definition of transphobia.
It's so stupid. And here's why. Because when you're talking about top athletes in the world, Serena Williams, phenomenally talented tennis player, phenomenally talented, as is her sister Venus, phenomenally talented athletes. I think the speed of their serve is like 40 miles per hour slower than like the 100th ranked man. It's so apples and oranges because of the difference in strength of men. When you're talking about athletes, you're talking about the elites of the elites in their athletic prowess. And you're able to take a man, a biological man, who's like basically 100th in the world, when you're talking about at that level of competition, they have such a significant advantage because of by dint of being born a biological male, that they would dominate females. And we know this. So it's like, we're not talking about society at large and how, like, you know, this percentage of women or this height or whatever, that's got nothing to do with anything. We're talking about amongst the best of the best from both men and women. We know that the muscle mass that a biological woman can amass is like 40% less than what any man can. The best of the best woman wouldn't be like in the top like 500 men in most categories of sport. And you're pretending that we don't know. We don't know. Who knows? There's no study. We need a study. If only there was a study. Oh my gosh, a study would answer everything. But no one's won the Olympics. Some women in track and field are taller than others. It's such a joke.
So it's interesting that you say that, you know,
Those
because
lemmings. Yay. Yay.
it's interesting that you say that, because I think if I were to push back, or even not even playing devil's,
If I were, he's so afraid. He's so afraid. Why are you such a transphobe, Trevor? Why are you such a transphobe?
Advocates, there are a few things that could be argued. Number one, you could argue that although the trans woman who competed in the Olympics didn't dominate, she did beat a field of women who might have qualified for that position, right? Secondly, when you talk about the height differences, I agree with this completely, but there are many who would argue that we exist in a state where a lot of the surgeries are new, a lot of the technology, just the technology is new. Transgenderism is not new. We know it throughout time, we've seen it throughout history. But there are many.
Oh, transgenderism as opposed to transsexuality. Oh, okay, fine.
Who would say, how do we ensure that we are creating some sort of standard? And the reason we talk to this is, we talk about this is, it's the reason they have to regulate performance-enhancing drugs. For instance, what is fair? What can you drink? What can you not drink? What can you consume? What can you not consume? Some would say, if you are born that way, that's how sport has determined who goes where. And then some would say, no, regardless of who you are, you should be able to compete. My question then comes in from a really, honestly, a different place. I look at somebody like Oscar Pistorius from South Africa, right? He was the double amputee. Yep. And Oscar Pistorius actually went, well, I want to compete in the able-bodied race, right? And people were like, well, do you have an advantage? Do you not, et cetera, because of the prosthetics. But then could there not be an argument if there is no advantage in that then trans women should be able to compete, but in the men's races then, because they'd still be able to compete in the sport?
But they're women and they're female. So, like I said, this boils down.
There you go. Put them all with the men. Put them all with the men. Yeah, you can compete. Sport is a human right. Go compete with the men.
Are trans women really women?
No, they're not. Just say it, Trevor. Just say they're not. They're trans women.
Are they really female? Because if you think yes, then we belong competing with other women.
If you think yes, you're a doofus. You're lying because you're cowed. You're afraid to say no because everyone knows the answer is no.
So it's an extreme indignity to.
This is what happens when you embrace positions that everyone knows is a fiction. Because once you lock yourself into a position, you say, "Oh yeah, they're women. Oh yeah," because you're afraid of speaking out against it. Then in that case, Veronica Ivy's got a point. But everyone knows it's a fiction. Everyone knows this is like a figment of everyone's imagination. That's why they're so frustrated. That's why the feminists are so frustrated. It's like, okay, we're saying you're women, but we know you're not women. But we know we all know you're not. We're gonna say it to make you feel good, but we know you're not really a woman. Oh, you want to compete with women in sports? Oh, you're gonna be put in a women's prison. Oh, you're gonna be walking in on me in the back. This is what happens.
Say, I believe you're a woman, except for sport.
Or except for prison.
Right? So you can't single out one of the most important facets of our society. We are obsessed with sport. Athletes are some of the most highly.
We're also obsessed. We're obsessed with we're obsessed with a lot of things. We're obsessed with music also. We're obsessed with a lot of things. We're obsessed with our military dominance. We're obsessed with a lot of things. And some people on the left are obsessed with like basically deconstructing our entire society. So that's an empty argument.
Highly praised, highly paid people on the planet.
Definitely.
So you can't say that like, I believe you and I support you, but not for this one really big thing that society really cares about.
Why not?
And I'm saying I get confused by why we distill it down into just two things. I'll tell you why. As we learn about gender being a spectrum, as we learn that people can identify in a multitude of ways, we accept the fact that we don't have to put people.
As we learn, we're not learning. As we just basically create more, we create genders faster than we can create Bitcoin. As we learn, there's no learning implies that there's something out there to be learned. No, it's not learning. It's create. And then create, and then create, and create without really showing much creative or artistic ability because it just label this as a brand new thing. All right, we'll just call it this. As we learn. What a stupid statement. that every woke kisser upper uses that phrase, as we learn. He's about to say, you're going to say, like, you have to recognize me as woman. So as we're learning, there's a spectrum. So then if there's a spectrum, then in that case, that spectrum might include people who are trans, who are far more masculine. And what's going to happen with those folks? Sport is a human right. What happens to them?
I'll tell you why. As we learn about gender being a spectrum, as we learn that people can identify in a multitude of ways, we accept the fact that we don't have to put people into categories of man or woman. You know, that's why they say protect trans women. It's like, otherwise, which women are you protecting? It's an argument that doesn't separate or diminish anybody, but gives more specificity to what people are saying. And so when we talk about these things, I sometimes get confused by why we're trying to force the people into two again, when we've been taught that there isn't a two. Whereas a sport like, let's say boxing.
That's a great
for
argument.
instance, in boxing, people fight across all weight categories. They don't just go men's boxing, women's boxing. They go, no, men, heavyweight, super heavyweight, and then they'll be like middleweight, bantamweight, flyweight, featherweight. There's like guys who weigh nothing punching each other. And I mean this genuinely. I've always thought to myself, it's interesting how in boxing they went, well, we don't just want to see guys fighting. We want to see guys fighting at different weights. The UFC does the same thing. They go, you're going to fight in your weight class, which has, it seems crazy. How can you break it down? And yet it's worked. And so I wonder if you've ever considered, and I'm not saying it's your job, by the way, but if you've ever considered
It kind
a
of
world,
literally is.
Oh, then great. Have you ever considered a world where it becomes more specific then? You know, the same thing they did in the Paralympics. They had to find a way where they classified how a single amputee could run against somebody who's partially blind or a double amputee, and how do we grade that? So do you not think that we're limiting ourselves by saying men's sports, women's sports, when we now know that there's so many more genders?
So I'm really going to just satisfy you right now.
Well, you don't know what I'm looking for, though, so you can't.
I do. I know you're looking for something other than what I'm going to say, and that is a very important question and a very difficult question, but it's a separate question. The question we're talking about is, given how sport is currently structured, should we include trans women and intersex women in women's sport? And my answer to that is a clear yes.
And obviously, you're biased, which is why you say that. But anyone who's looking at objectively says, okay, we know you're not really a woman, and anyone who's ever told you in your life that you're a woman was patronizing you. And you're confusing patronization with reality. That's like, you know, someone coming over and telling Veronica Ivy, you're a beautiful woman. It's like they're patronizing you. But because it was so busy patronizing that it's like, no, that's now reality. This is the same thing we saw with the whole it's patronizing the trans community. Not that there is a community. It's patronizing trans folks. It's patronizing fat folks with Sports Illustrated saying this is the new beautiful Victoria's Secret or whatever, different new models. It's all patronization. That it's like we're trying to pretend that patronization is actually real. Instead of someone just saying, look, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be a jerk. But hey, you're not pretty. You're not a woman. You're not all these things. You know, if you want to pretend that, and then we'll have a game that we'll pretend for a few minutes. But then when we come back to reality land, that reality doesn't care about, you know, I don't want to paraphrase Ben Shapiro here. You know, when I was in Virginia, so we were in a house, we were right by the ocean. Right by the ocean. And it made me poetic. Yeah, I know. It did. I woke up in the morning, I'm looking out, I see the ocean there, the sun rising over the ocean. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's so different from the West Coast. It is so different because sunrise, it's like you're woken up by two suns. It's like all of a sudden you're on Tatooine. There's the sun in the sky, and then it's reflecting so clearly off of the ocean. There's literally looks like there's another sunlight. It's like the sunlight that was coming into my window was just insane. Insane. You don't have that. I mean, I know that, look, sunsets on the Pacific are beautiful, but it's a different type of beauty. And I was watching, I was thinking, like, you know, the oceans of the world they dance with the moon, like the tides rising and falling. They basically chase the moon around the globe. That's what the oceans of the world are constantly doing. They're literally chasing the moon around the globe. And this is like the little dance that they've been doing long before man was walking the earth. We'll probably be doing long after. This dance. I was thinking about this in the context of when I was having a conversation about, you know, where these feminists were talking about how men have been dominating women for thousands of years. And it's like, you know, you can call the relationship between men and women what was actually happening 200 years ago and for thousands of years before that, meaning before men were working in offices and then women joined into the workforce. Basically, women were tending to the home because they were naturally, biologically suited for that. And men were going out to provide for the family. And then in the home, he would have the dominant say when he came home. That was the natural order of things. And women were seeking out a protector. That's how women have always been hardwired. That's how they always will be hardwired. Men are hardwired to enjoy the role of being protector, which is an astonishing thing when you think about, like, why do you want to take that role? But that's what our drive is, to be that protector. That's a natural male drive. To feel good about yourself, protecting others, especially your own kin, your own wife, children, family, community, country. Life was hard for both men and women in completely different ways, but it was brutal for men and women. Now, as a protector, that means you're going to be taking a role which is going to look like dominance. But the same way you can look at when dogs and cats, the interesting thing between dogs and cats is this. A dog looks at its master, and when a dog sees its owner, it basically says, wow, this guy provides a home for me, and clothes me, and feeds me, and plays with me, and gives me attention, and does all these wonderful things for me. This my master must be a god. And that's how a dog looks at its master, as opposed to a cat, which says, wow, my owner takes care of me, plays with me, houses me, shelters, provides food. I must be a god. And you could look at two different people could be looking at the same set of facts and draw completely opposite conclusions. So in the nature of relationship between men and women, one could look at that relationship and say, wow, the man's the one who's going out there and he's protecting and he's looking after the family and risking his life and doing all and making the challenging decisions there. So he must be the god. Or you could look at it as, no, the woman is the goddess. And this is basically someone who's serving the goddess by protecting, by taking care of the goddess. It's all a matter of framing in your mind. So you could look, and I was thinking about this in the context of, you could look at the oceans chasing the moon around the globe as, like, the moon is basically like, like in this cat and mouse kind of dance. You could look at it as like the moon is dominating the oceans. It's making it move this way and move that way. Or you could just say, you know what? This is just a relationship, and not try to assess who's winning between these two. This is how a symbiotic relationship works between these two entities. And it's not a matter, and if you decide to step back and start casting judgment, wait a minute, is this really fair? And who's in charge? And who's getting? And who's the boss? And who's got all the rights? And who's got all the benefits? And who's got all this? You can look at it like that if you're a petulant, whiny child. But if you look at it like a mature individual, you basically say, yeah, you know what? You could look at it this way, or you could equally well look at it that way. You can look at it either way, and but really, you're just trying to define the nature of the world, of how things are. And your preconceived definitions aren't making it something. It just is what it is. Because whether you consider it that the moon is in charge, or you could say that the oceans are the ones who are actually engaging and having all the activity, at the end of the day, if you build a castle at low tide, the water's going to come. And you can say, well, that's not fair, it's not right. Reality ends up being reality because nature is nature. Nature will do what nature will do. And how you decide to define it in your own brain and say, no, it's like this, no, it's like that, or this is not fair, that's not fair, is stupid. It's childish. The objective should be to figure out how things work rather than trying to sit there and say, but is this fair? Is this right? When you're dealing with things that are human nature, it's not a matter of what's fair or what's right. It's just a matter of this is just reality. This is the world we live in. I didn't make the rules. I'm not setting the rules. You didn't make the rules. You're not setting the rules, but this is reality. And the reality here is Veronica Ivy is a man. Was born a man. Now, I don't know. Maybe there was surgery. Maybe there wasn't. And maybe it became a trans woman. Okay, that's fine. But the reality is that there's far greater mass that someone who's born a man, muscle mass that someone who's born a man is going to have. And that's just reality. And you could try and say, it's not fair. This is rights. This is human rights. And sport is a right. And all sorts of like dressings and all sorts of like, but you patronized me all this time and said, I really am a woman. And you said, I'm a beautiful woman. You said, I look so good in these rainbow glasses. And you said all these things. Yeah, you know what? That's because people are being polite. But at the end of the day, reality is reality. That's my thought. If you want to talk about like what is actually justice, well, someone cares. If anyone cares about women's sport, which that's a good debate also. Like, why do we have women's sport? You can walk down that road if you want. But once you decide what you're going to have women's sport, to try and say, oh yeah, it makes total sense to put a trans woman in there is absurd. It's ridiculous. And there's no such thing as far as like, oh, sport is a right. Yeah, sport is a right. Okay, go compete with the men. Sport is a human right.
Want to say, should we revisit how we structure all of sport? I would say, yeah, we should do that. But if your only reason for doing that is because you can't just accept trans women or women, that's a problem I got with you.
Why? Why do you have a problem with that? That's reality. That's reality. You have the same Y chromosomes that I have. And yeah, look, I'm sure you're far better athletic shape than I am. I'm sure a lot of women could probably in sport. I'm sure any one of the Olympics, I would get roasted in any sport by any woman, but I'm not the person that they're trying to compete against.
I'm not saying it's
not with you.
No, I hear what you're saying. No, I completely hear what you're saying. So let me ask you this then. You know, again, eliminating fringes, because everything on the internet becomes fringe. Everything becomes a fight and an argument. If somebody comes to you in good faith, and I mean genuinely good faith, and they say to you, you know, Veronica, I was born a woman, raised a woman. I've suffered or lived and experienced life as a woman. This is where I am. This is where my body has gotten me to. I've grown as a woman. My body has had the testosterone or estrogen that it had to get me to this point, and that's why I am here. And I feel like you may or may not have the advantage, but we don't know yet. So why can't we wait to know these things before you compete against me? How would you respond to that?
Because that's not how human rights work.
What?
So the way human rights work is that the default is inclusion and the burden of proof is on the people seeking to exclude.
Yeah, well, the burden of proof is your Y chromosomes. There you go. Now ball's in your court.
Include. So I want to share something shocking with everybody. It wasn't until 5 years ago that we actually studied the relationship between natural testosterone and performance. And we found that there's no relationship whatsoever between unaltered, natural, endogenous testosterone and sport performance. About 0.5% of elite male track and field athletes at the world championship level are below the women's average of testosterone, competing with men with 80 to 100
It's not
times
just
as much
testosterone
at no competitive disadvantage.
Oh my God.
And that fact has not been picked up by the broader media landscape. So
you know what the difference is? The difference is this. You can have a balloon which has this much plastic in it, or a balloon which has this much plastic in it. And I mean, if you're gonna work it out and pump it and fill it with air, your capacity for building muscle mass far exceeds any woman. When you're talking about, if you're at the elite level of a man, you're far exceeding any woman. There's a reason why men's times in every sport, in track and field, it just blows away the women. I defy you. I defy you. Pick any area of track and field and look at the world record for women versus world record for men. You know the answer. We all know the answer. Why is that? Why do you think that is? How do you answer that, Veronica?
When you say I'm a woman and I have this much testosterone, well, first, there's a huge range within women into the male range.
This is a straw man.
And there is no relationship between her having a competitive advantage over
Nobody said it was
women with lower
testosterone.
testosterone. So there are elite cis men with low testosterone, lower than a given woman, who's out competing her. So our bodies and biology is not this simple. We thought it was, and it isn't. So we know that when you add testosterone to your natural levels, like doping, you tend to get bigger, stronger, faster. We also know that when you drop your...
So how do you explain the fact that men's world records dominate women's in every sport? Any sport in the Summer Olympics. Probably Winter Olympics too. How do you explain that, Veronica?
Testosterone levels, like trans women tend to do, you tend to get slower. But what your natural level is has no relationship to your sport performance. And we've been singling out that factor, testosterone.
Why?
Against the scientific evidence.
But
No, we're not.
I'm a little confused, and forgive me if I'm slow to understand this. You just said the natural level doesn't give you an advantage or a disadvantage. But you said if people do have an addition or a subtraction of it, then it does give you a disadvantage or an advantage.
Well, it affects things. So for example, like my body doesn't produce testosterone, and it hasn't for a decade. But I switched sports from a road cycling event to a track power event, and I switched training, and I put on 25 pounds of muscle, and I went from being able to squat 170 to 375.
Yeah.
So
how many women can squat that much? Your muscles have more are like the balloon with much greater plastic. They have the ability to expand and grow far greater than a woman's can. That's the point.
Producing testosterone, and I squat a lot. And that's just because I changed training. So it's not so simple as, okay, if you drop your testosterone, you will get weaker. Because if you change your training, your diet, your rest and recovery, your sport, your performance can change.
Your body will change. It seems like we're always going to end up in a cul-de-sac because many people use it as a cudgel, I've realized, to scare people. Oh, the transgenders are coming for you, your bathrooms, your sports, everything. Be careful what you say. But it feels like there are many discussions to be had. It feels like, as you said, you know, the research, the science, everything hasn't caught up. But I appreciate you for coming on.
You're done. All right, we'll do one more. Oh, we got that one. Live and let live. Hey, Mo Zamboni, how you doing, brother? Live and let live, unless it infringes upon the comfort of deviants who require the acceptance of others to validate their sad existence. Yep. Okay, groomer. Now compare these debates to Gore Vidal versus William F. Buckley. 6'3" woman has less upper body mass than 6'3" male. Of course they do. Hey, ZOMG, I haven't seen you in ages, brother. Ban all sex segregation in sports. That's another way to go. Let's do that. We can ban all sex segregation in sports. Just end up abolishing women's sports. Michigan has both sunrise and sunset coasts. It's not an ocean. Don't talk to me about your stupid Great Lakes. It's not the same thing. They're lakes. It's not the ocean. Only 3 Phillies have won the Kentucky Derby. Interesting. I did not know that. All right. I want to watch Patrick Bet-David. I want to watch him because he's fun. I have a great deal of respect for him. He's a very smart guy, very entertaining. I assume from the name Bet David that he's Israeli. His accent sounds Israeli too.
You know, sometimes you think you have a lot of time to create momentum. You don't. Their camp has a shot. They have a shot. But when's the last time?
There's a heated debate on DeSantis.
You heard a story about that.
But he's not a candidate yet.
It doesn't matter. You still start marketing. There's many people that weren't candidates that they were branding and marketing way before. So,
well, the book was an attempt at that, but I think your point about that is...
But he didn't do a good job promoting his book. I'm sorry. That book was a lazy method of marketing. Go on.
I think these are I think he has DeSantis inner circle people with him.
That book should be in top 10 for 6 straight months if you would have gone. Has he gone on your podcast? Has he talked to you guys?
On radio
I guess they're not in a circle.
When's the last? Okay, so let me get this straight. You guys replace Rush, and he hasn't come on to you. I understand you don't want to come here because I challenge all the time. You guys support him. You replace Rush. He hasn't been on your podcast? How?
He came on. He came on.
By the way, and here's my question before you defend him. Since the launch of the book.
I'm trying to remember.
Since the launch of the book.
He came on the day the book released.
There we go. And did he promote the book?
Yeah, for 10 minutes. I mean, he was on for a 10-minute hit.
That's not really.
No, I mean, you're preaching to the choir. Like
I think he is so marked.
Ron, you need to come on Good Logic and promote your book. Okay, it's time. Come on Good Logic. I'll have a banner running the entire time. Ron DeSantis people, I'm sure you're watching here. Tell Ron he can come on here. Doesn't have to be the full 2 hours. I know he's busy. An hour and a half is fine. And I'll have the whole banner running here, and I'll have, some fair questions. Please, like take your campaign seriously. Your pre-campaign campaign. Take it seriously.
I think he is a strong leader. I think he has an incredible resume. I don't know why they're not telling the story. It's almost as if he's not going to run. If you're not going to run, then I support it on what you're doing. Maybe you're not going to be running, and that's your strategy, and none of us know shit. Fine. But if you are going to run, what's he going to do if he gets on your podcast for an hour? All he's going to get is nice questions, and he's going to be able to defend himself, and the audience is going to see a different side of him. How many people like that could he have gone on? You, Megyn Kelly, so many different places he could have gone on. No, why don't you?
Good Logic.
Well, because he hasn't announced it yet. But you launched a damn book. Who's the marketing team?
I think the Trump people have landed so many blows that
it's a one-way war, and a one-way war only goes in one direction. So far, that's the way it's been.
I think when you have the resume that he has, all you have to say is the answer he keeps giving. Listen, guys, everybody wants it to be me against Trump. I'm not going to fall for that. All I'm going to tell you is our resume. I won by 34,000 votes the first time.
Yeah,
because Trump helped us out. Yes, that is true. He said it in his book multiple times. Second time, 1.5 million. That wasn't without the help. Here's who we were able to convert. While the states were doing this, we went against the grain. They said this.
No, I will tell you, he's PBD is correct, and he's incorrect in the same time. He's correct that Ron's resume as governor of Florida is stellar, and the results speak for themselves. He's right. He went from a 34,000 win to 1.5 million. That's crazy. That is crazy development of popularity, and popularity via the method that we all want of basically fighting against woke policies. And that's a phenomenal speaking point. I will tell you this: if he does run, be cautious of the fact that success as a governor in a state where you have a super majority of Republicans who are all on your side, and you can basically pass laws, is very different than being president. It's not the same thing. And there have been many governors who were great at what they did as governor who were not nearly as successful when they became president. Is it possible that can transition into a successful presidency and a successful administration? Definitely. Is it a guarantee? Far from it.
We did this. Here's what happened in Florida. Look how many people are coming to us from New York. We're recruiting cops. He just have to say that. Like there was one time I saw a video that were making fun of The Rock to promote a movie. And he was on 20 different interviews, and he used the same exact line. And I'll go, oh, look at him. He's just, that's what he's supposed to do. You're supposed to go say that to different audiences, even if people catch you or not. That's part of your job.
You're going to have us back in the summer when he's a candidate so we can actually see how the campaign is
I'd
doing.
like to do two more stories before we wrap up.
Pay attention to one date. The Florida legislative session ends May 5th.
Yeah.
So by May 5th,
matter.
right after that,
how much
we should be looking.
By when do we choose the Republican candidate? Well, when is the date?
March.
When is the primary?
Sorry, the super.
Yeah, it's a long time.
We'll have
early
in like
24?
10 months from now. We'll know probably who the nominee is.
Okay, so May, that's a month from now. So he announces, say, second, third week of May. So he's got 9 months. After you launched your book that you haven't promoted yet, what are you going to go back and re-promote a book that you launched 3 months ago? I'm a marketer, guys. I'm not a politician. I'm a marketer. From the marketing standpoint, that's not a good marketing strategy.
You don't think he's going to hit the blitzkrieg this summer? You don't think he's going to decide that when he's actually running as a candidate, all of a sudden you're probably not going to get him out of your green room?
I hope I'm wrong. I hope so, because I think he's got a great resume. And I'm just, to me, you know, when the coach gets upset at Steph Curry one game, I'll never forget. It's like, can I ask you why you're not shooting threes? You shot 2 threes today. What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? Shoot the damn threes. You're our best guy. Go. Play ball, bro. Let's go. It's like, shit, you're right. And then all the teammates are like, dude, I don't care if you go 0 for 10.
Yeah.
You're the best three-point shooter. Go. Let's roll. That's the part where it's like, this is a phenomenal candidate. You have an incredible resume coming from the biggest shit show for 2.5 years, and you came up above everybody. There's not a governor that's above him in America during COVID with all the manipulation, everybody targeting his ass. He stood out.
In a state where he has like more elderly than like per capita than anybody, and arguably in the country. More people susceptible to the lethality of COVID than anywhere else, and he's shown.
The more you wait, the more those stories are gone. What are we doing? Like, who the hell is going out there speaking for you? Who's going out there selling this stuff for you? My frustration.
He's right about that, by the way. He's right, because Giuliani made that mistake also. Giuliani basically waited and waited when he was running in 2008 for the Republican nomination. He waited. He didn't even come in, he didn't even like campaign for like the first 4 primaries. And then when he came in, his messaging was about 9/11, which was stuff that was 7 years earlier. No one wanted to hear about that. Instead of talking about what a phenomenal job he did as mayor. You have to strike while the iron's hot.
Is a complete different frustration.
Can I tell you?
It's got nothing to do with policy.
One quick thing. I know you want to get the Elon thing. I just would say there are a lot of people that I think would speak out about that stuff on the right, and they are afraid of Trump. They're afraid of
but then you don't. Then you should fire yourself.
You dismiss. No, but I'm saying you're asking why.
Then those people, if there are people like that, you should resign. Because if you're doing this type of stuff, I'll never forget this. There was a book I read, business book, and I want to give this guy credit. I don't know who wrote it. When I found out, I'm going to give the credit. When you're coming up, you always have these 2 or 3 names that you think you need, because without them, you're never going to be as big as you're doing a show. Oh my God, if we land that interview, oh my God, if we raise money from that guy, oh my God, listen, man. You think you need that one interview, that one guest, that whatever to validate you. If you're good enough and you're fair with your audience and you're straight up, and there's a part of you that respects the audience, but there's a part of you that's not going to cave into your audience trashing you because you don't say what they want you to say. I'm not doing that, bro. This is what I believe. You don't like it, go talk to somebody else that you think you're going to agree with 100% of the time. That's not my ass. To the people that are afraid of that, they should quit today.
Yep.
Because they don't belong in the journalistic world. Talk shit to both sides. Give your opinion, support.
Yep.
Give your values and principles. And then from there on, see what happens.
And that's what we saw from those leftists yesterday. He's like, I had to do this because a lot of my community is trans and they were up in arms and they needed someone to stand up for them. No. That's caving into your fans. Look, I want every one of you to come back here every single day. I want you to sub. You should hit like. You should subscribe. And I want you to hit like and subscribe. And then you should hit like and subscribe again a third time, because the third time is when it's going to take. The second time, you're going to unsubscribe. So yeah, like and subscribe. Definitely, that's the 4th. So one more, because it's got to be an odd number. So yeah, I definitely want you to like and subscribe. You should do that now, right now. And I want you to love every word that comes out of my mouth. And I want you to be here religiously. Like, oh my God, it's 10 o'clock. How am I not? if like I take a night off, you should feel like you have like you're getting the fits. You're getting the fits. Like it's like you need your Jocatine. That's what that you feel like you need Jocatine at 10 p.m. And like at 9 o'clock, you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, why is the link not up yet? Is he? I hope he's going to be on time, not going to be late again. That's what every one of us wants. But if I'm going to cave to tell you what I think you want to hear, I'm a joke and I'm a loser. The reason your audience respects you more when you actually speak truth to them, even if it's something they disagree with. And if someone is so fragile that they're like, oh my gosh, he said that a trans woman is not really a woman, I'm not going to watch him. All right, look, that's my opinion. I'm telling you right now. I'll explain to you why my opinion is what my opinion is, and if that's going to turn you off, that you're never going to watch me again. Okay. I have to be true to you, and he's so correct in this.
Defend your values and principles. I'm very open about the values and principles I defend. You guys got the top show radio. I'm sorry, guys.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah,
I would call into our show unscheduled all the time to talk for 5 to 7 minutes.
And you know who did that? This guy named Donald.
Yeah,
he did that all the time. This guy named Donald.
Best story I've got for Trump, really quickly. First time I had him on the radio show, he's president of the United States. He called the show himself. You guys know the PR apparatus that exists for like low-level non-entities. He would call the show himself and come on.
You call that a hustler. That's what you call that. And you know what? I respect the hustle.
He's a marketer.
Yeah. And by the way, you're going against a marketer.
Yep.
You're going against a marketer. You ain't going against. You beat him. You could beat the other guy. It's almost like, you know how sometimes there's an NBA championship and you're like, this ain't a freaking championship. Nobody watches it because the championship was the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yep.
What the hell are we doing here? You beat the Eastern Conference Final. You could win it all and get a chip today. There's a lot could change between now and 5 years from now, 4 years from now. So I don't know. My level of frustration is that
so he clearly is a DeSantis guy rather than a Trump guy. I don't watch him very frequently at PBD.
You think you have more time than you actually have. Where is the sense of urgency? Where is that? Where's the sense of urgency with that?
The comparison, though, to understanding no one has understood the media and been the same kind of force that Donald Trump has been.
That's your opponent.
Period.
So that means, so you know what that means, though. Here's what that means. You know what I do. This is what I do if I'm DeSantis' camp. Hey, Schwartzman, you really support us? Yes. Who's the best marketer you know? We want to meet with them. Hey, XYZ Musk, you support us? Yes. Who's the best marketer we can hire for the next 2 years? Are you willing to help us find that guy? And you don't think Musk knows that, or David Sachs knows that guy, or Rogan has these calls? Bro, let's use our contact to put a super-ass team together to play ball. And I guarantee you, if you hired a super team to work with you, some people may say, well, maybe he's done that. Nobody knows about it. Really? You think the super team would have allowed the book to do what it did? I don't think so. I think it would have been a complete different story. Again, to me, he's president, Trump's president. We're fine because we need somebody that's strong to fight off us against all the bullshit that's going on in the world today. This is not a picking favorites. This is about.
It sounds like you're picking favorites.
The more both sides are fighting their arguments in a better way, we have a better chance of having somebody. When I just don't see them playing offense, it's disappointing. But again, I may be wrong. I'm not a political strategist. I'm a pure marketer and a strategist from the sense of business point, not from when I'm competing with different people in the insurance space. I have to figure out a way what that guy's strength is, what my weakness is, what his weakness is, what my strength is. These are not complicated conversations to be having. So I just don't know who they're hiring behind closed doors. Hey, Musk, you really want me to win? I need your help. You don't think Musk would help him? Do you think they've had that meeting before? I hope they have. Do you think he's coming to Miami, Musk, end of the month. I hope he's meeting with DeSantis. Have they had these meetings? Has he sat down with Rogan? Is he having these conversations with Schwartzman? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But they have access to these people to hire. So if you,
I'm just going to pause for a second, just point this out to you. Can you imagine a debate stage of DeSantis versus Trump? Can you even imagine what that would be? Oh my God, I'm salivating. I am salivating. And we know Trump would go low. We know that he would. You got to be real. He would go low. And DeSantis would try to stay high, but have the occasional low jab. You know. But like having a real conversation about policy. Oh, that'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. All right, let's finish it. Let's finish this up. Actually, I didn't realize that I actually had like.
You really want me? Show up. Show up. Give me some of those guys.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the...
I did like this clip. But I'm not going to watch another one right now because it's time. It's his time. Let me do this first. Where you at? Let me hook up my friend. Yeah, I just kicked you over to Nick. Well, not officially yet. Oh, I had a couple of super chats here. So, Catherine Steffi, you should see the live Pat did with Giuliani. I'll check that out. Thank you. I'm really a big fan of his. I have great respect for his mind, for his talent, everything. The guy's great. He's great. I consider him a personal role model for how I should do my show. I really do. Be here religiously instead of Marv. Oh, yeah, do Marv beforehand. Thanks for the entertainment, Joe. Oh, I appreciate the thought. That's very thoughtful. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mojo. And that is our show for tonight. God willing, tomorrow evening, 10 p.m. I'll be back here. Make sure you liked. Make sure you subscribed. Leave a comment. Oh my God, do I love comments. Just leave a comment. Do something like that. But show has run its course. As always, we say, Godspeed.